Most people just don't get it. They don't understand the kind of power it takes for a woman to live her life alone. They see her and they whisper behind her back. They question her choices. They jump to the conclusion that she must be broken or lonely or just unlucky in love. But what if I told you that she's actually the strongest person in the room? What if her solitude isn't a sign of weakness but a profound display of wisdom? I want you to stay with me until the end, because the final truth I'm going to share will completely shift how you see strength, self-worth, and relationships forever. There's a massive difference between being alone and being lonely, but our world constantly confuses the two. When a woman makes the conscious choice to live without a boyfriend, to step away from the noise, the drama, and the chaos that can sometimes come with relationships, people immediately think something is wrong with her. But the truth is, that woman is finally right with herself. She has reached a point in her life where her own peace is more valuable than temporary company. She doesn't need someone sitting next to her just to prove that she's lovable. She already knows she is. And that deep inner knowing, that's the beginning of real power. When you stop chasing love for validation and start living from a place of genuine wholeness, everything in your world changes. You no longer feel the need for someone to complete you, because you have already done the work to complete yourself. This woman always chooses herself first. And let's be clear, a woman who lives alone isn't trying to avoid love. She's avoiding nonsense. She isn't bitter about her past. She's better because of it. Better at recognizing her own worth. Better at establishing and holding her boundaries. Better at choosing the quiet calm of silence over the storm of chaos. This is a woman who has learned that the world will try to take pieces of her if she lets it, so she simply doesn't let it anymore. Instead, she wakes up in peace. She makes her coffee in the quiet of her own kitchen, and she smiles. Not because someone sent her a good morning text, but because she is genuinely proud of the person she is becoming. Her mornings are like a sacred ritual. Can you picture it? The sunlight streaming through the blinds, the steam gently rising from her favorite mug, maybe some soft music playing, or perhaps just the beautiful sound of stillness filling the room. There's a certain magic in this solitude, a power that's born from knowing herself so deeply that she finds true joy in her own company. Every single part of her life is intentional. Her time, her space, her energy, none of it is just up for grabs by anyone who happens to ask. She understands exactly what they cost: the emotional labor, the mental exhaustion, the slow erosion of self that happens when you give too much of yourself to people who don't value it, and she refuses to pay that price ever again. It might have taken her years, maybe even decades to get to this place, to fully understand that saying yes to herself often requires saying no to others. But now that she's here, there's absolutely no turning back. Her home is a reflection of this newfound clarity. You won't find walls cluttered with the ghosts of relationships past. Instead, they hold art that she loves, photos that bring her genuine joy, and reminders of moments that truly mattered. Her bookshelf tells the story of her growth, filled with novels about women finding their own way, memoirs about incredible resilience, and journals filled with her own messy handwriting, tracing her journey through heartbreaks and the healing of old wounds. Even her wardrobe feels like an extension of her very soul. It's filled with clothes that make her feel powerful, colors that reflect her mood, and fabrics that remind her to breathe easy. Everything around her serves a purpose, whether it's functional or purely for beauty. Nothing exists just to fill an empty space. And yet, despite all of this intentional living, she's not cold, far from it. People often mistake her independence for being aloof, but the ones who truly know her understand the incredible warmth that lies just beneath the surface. When she decides to invite you into her world, it's always genuine. Whether it's sharing laughter over a dinner, she cooked herself recommending a podcast episode that changed her perspective, or just sitting quietly beside you while you cry. Because sometimes silence says more than words ever could. It's always real. She gives her all when she chooses to give, which makes every single interaction with her meaningful. You'll never catch her pretending to care about something or someone just out of obligation. If she is present with you, it's because she truly wants to be. This doesn't mean she's immune to loneliness. Of course not, she's human. Some nights after the dishes are done and the apartment is dark, except for the glow of her laptop screen, she might scroll through social media and see photos of couples laughing together, or big groups of friends gathered around a bonfire. And for a fleeting moment, a little bit of doubt might creep in. Am I missing something? Shouldn't I want that? But then she remembers a crucial truth. Wanting more doesn't mean you should ever settle for less. Love isn't supposed to fit awkwardly into your life like a pair of shoes that pinches your toes. It should slide on effortlessly, comfortably, enriching everything without overshadowing it. And until she finds that, or until she decides she doesn't need it at all, she is perfectly content exactly where she is. Her confidence can be intimidating to some people, especially men who expect her to play along with outdated scripts about how women are supposed to behave. They're used to the roles of chasing, fixing, or rescuing. But she doesn't need to be saved. In fact, she's probably saved herself more times than anyone else ever could. So, when they ask that tired old question, "Why haven't you found the one yet?" she just shrugs and might say with a small smile, "Maybe I already have." Because the truth is, she has. She's chosen herself first. She has become her own knight in shining armor, her own safe harbor in the middle of a storm. And once you have experienced that kind of unconditional self-love, it changes absolutely everything. For her, boundaries are now non-negotiable, not because she's spiteful, but out of pure necessity. She's seen firsthand what happens when you let toxic patterns go unchecked, how resentment builds up, how trust crumbles, and how both people end up hurt, sometimes beyond repair. So, now she sets her limits early and enforces them firmly. No ghosting allowed, no mind games, no half-hearted promises that are disguised as effort. If you can't respect her rules, you won't last very long in her world. But for those who do, for those who genuinely respect her and appreciate her strength, they discover something truly remarkable. She is loyal to the absolute core. Once you earn her trust, she will stand by you through thick and thin. Just don't ever expect her to compromise who she is along the way. The journey to this point was anything but easy. There were days she doubted herself. Days she questioned whether being alone was really better than just tolerating mediocrity. She's had breakups that left her feeling raw, friendships that tested her patience. She's had family members urge her to just settle down before it was too late. Yet through all of it, she kept coming back to one central, powerful truth: she deserves better. Not someday, not later, but right now, today, every single day. That realization became her guiding light, leading her toward choices that honored her spirit instead of diminishing it. Now she moves through the world differently. She walks a little taller, speaks a little more clearly, and laughs a lot louder. She takes risks, not reckless ones, but calculated leaps of faith designed to push her closer to her dreams. Maybe that looks like starting her own business, or traveling solo to a country where she doesn't speak the language, or finally pursuing that hobby she always talked about but never seemed to make time for. Whatever it is, she approaches it with a powerful combination of courage and curiosity. For her, failure isn't really failure, it's just feedback. Each misstep teaches her something new about herself, reinforcing her belief that true growth always comes from stepping outside of her comfort zone. And people notice this about her. Strangers will compliment her on her poise. Colleagues admire her incredible work ethic. Friends might even envy her ability to stay so grounded even when life gets chaotic. What they don't always see is all the work she does behind the scenes. The late nights spent journaling, the therapy sessions that helped her unpack years of societal conditioning, the affirmations she whispers to herself in the mirror on those mornings when self-doubt threatens to creep back in. Becoming the woman she is today required effort, vulnerability, and a profound willingness to confront hard truths. But she wouldn't trade any of it. Because here's the thing, living alone doesn't mean existing in isolation. It means creating a life that is rich with meaning, surrounded by people and experiences that align with your highest self. It means understanding that love isn't diminished by independence. In fact, it's enhanced by it. A partner, if and when she chooses one, won't be there to complete her. He'll be there to complement her. He'll step into a world that is already thriving, with a woman who is already whole. And that kind of dynamic, one that's built on mutual respect and genuine admiration, is far more fulfilling than anything rooted in insecurity or dependency. So, no, she isn't waiting for love. She's building a foundation strong enough to support it when and if it arrives. Until then, she's perfectly happy, dancing in her kitchen, reading under a soft blanket, exploring new cities, cheering on her friends, and nurturing the one relationship she values most, the one she has with herself. After all, a woman who chooses herself first isn't just surviving, she's thriving, and that is the greatest love story of all. She doesn't settle. And here's what people don't realize. That woman you see dining alone at the corner table, leisurely sipping her wine, with a book in her hand, she could have 10 different men blowing up her phone right at this very moment. 10 texts just waiting for a reply. 10 voices all vying for her attention. 10 different versions of, "Hey, you busy," but she isn't answering. And it's not because she's playing games, but because none of them feel worth her peace yet. None of them align with who she is or the direction she's headed. She isn't single because she can't get a man. She's single because she refuses to have the wrong one. Society might whisper that being alone means something is missing from her life, but she knows better. Being lonely isn't a flaw. Settling is. And she refuses to trade her comfort for chaos, her security for uncertainty, or her self-respect for mere scraps of affection. Love is not supposed to leave you questioning your own worth. It's supposed to affirm it. So, until someone shows up who is ready and willing to do just that, she'll stay exactly where she is, whole, independent, and unapologetically herself. Love isn't a foreign concept to her. She's felt its incredible highs, and she's endured its crushing lows. She's been swept off her feet only to come crashing back down to earth harder than before. She's given away pieces of her heart only to watch them be mishandled, misunderstood, or just outright discarded. But those experiences didn't break her. They built her. They taught her just how fragile trust can be, how delicate boundaries are, and how incredibly rare a true partnership really is. Now, when she thinks about love, she doesn't think about butterflies or grand empty gestures. She thinks about respect. She thinks about alignment. She thinks about two people consciously choosing each other every single day, even on the days when the spark feels a little dimmer than usual. Anything less than that, she's not interested. She's not afraid of love. Fear has absolutely nothing to do with it. What she's afraid of is repeating old patterns of losing herself in someone else's orbit, of letting desperation override her discernment. She has seen far too many women abandon their dreams, silence their own voices, and shrink themselves down to fit into relationships that never deserved them in the first place. That will not be her story. If anything, she's more courageous than most, because she is willing to wait for the kind of connection that feels like coming home, not like an obligation. The kind of love that amplifies her light instead of dimming it. After all, courage isn't about jumping into the deep end blindly. It's about knowing your own worth and demanding that others see it too. Of course, loneliness creeps in sometimes, sure. It happens on those late nights when the house feels a little too quiet, or on holidays when everyone else seems to be paired off. There are moments when she wonders if maybe she's asking for too much, but then she remembers that wanting more doesn't mean you should accept less. She knows she deserves someone who matches her energy, who meets her halfway, who sees her ambition as an asset rather than a threat. Someone who celebrates her wins and comforts her during her losses without feeling the need to control either. Until then, she would much rather sit with her solitude than settle for a life of dissatisfaction. This mindset can baffle some people. Her friends might ask why she hasn't put herself out there more. Family members might gently hint that maybe she's being too picky, too stubborn, or too idealistic. Even well-meaning coworkers might joke about her high standards, as if expecting mutual respect and emotional maturity is somehow an unreasonable request. But she doesn't let their opinions shake her resolve. She knows something they don't, that love shouldn't require you to compromise in the areas that matter most. You shouldn't have to choose between passion and peace, between excitement and stability, or between feeling desired and feeling valued. True love gives you both. Everything else is just noise. Her confidence definitely intimidates some men, especially those who are accustomed to women who chase, plead, and bend over backward just to keep them interested. These men expect her to play by the same old rules, to text first, to make excuses for their bad behavior, to mold herself into whatever shape makes them feel comfortable. But she just doesn't operate that way anymore. She attracts, she doesn't chase. Her very presence alone draws people in the way she laughs, so freely, listens so intently, and speaks so honestly. There's no pretense, no game playing, and no hidden agenda. There is only authenticity. And while some men might run from that level of transparency, the ones who stay, they're golden. Through the very way she carries herself, she sends a message that is loud and clear. I am enough. Enough without your validation. Enough without needing to explain myself. Enough without any apology. This energy radiates outward, creating a magnetic pull toward people who can truly appreciate it. People who understand that loving her means respecting her autonomy, supporting her growth, and meeting her on equal footing. When someone finally does step into her world on these terms, it won't be because she needed saving. It will be because they both recognize the incredible beauty of building something amazing together. And when that person does come along, they won't complete her. The idea of completion implies that she was incomplete to begin with and she is already whole. No, this person will complement her. They'll bring qualities that she admires, perspectives that she values, and strengths that balance out her weaknesses. Together, they will create something that is far greater than the sum of its parts. But here's the thing, she's not holding her breath waiting for this scenario to play out. If it happens, that's wonderful. If it doesn't, that's equally wonderful. Because she has learned that true fulfillment doesn't hinge on another person. It starts from within. So she continues to live her life to the fullest, completely unattached to the outcomes. She travels solo, explores new hobbies, invests in her friendships, builds her career, and nurtures her spirit. Every single experience adds another layer to her character, making her even more magnetic to the right kind of partner. And if no partner ever arrives, that's fine too. She's already living the kind of life most people only dream of, a life marked by purpose, passion, and a profound, unshakable self-love. After all, a woman who refuses to settle doesn't just attract better relationships, she becomes one. Peace is non-negotiable. She has learned a lesson that most people never do. Her peace is priceless. Once you get a taste of a quiet life, once you truly experience it and let it settle deep into your bones, you don't trade it for anything. Not for drama, not for ego, and not even for those fleeting moments of passion that leave you feeling more exhausted than exhilarated. For her, peace isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of alignment. It's the feeling of knowing exactly who you are and what you need in order to thrive. And once you've built a life that is rooted in self-respect, routine, and clarity, there is no going back. For her, relationships are not about filling voids or chasing thrills. They're about enhancing the strong foundation she has already created. Anything less than that feels like taking a step backward, like unraveling the very threads she worked so hard to weave together. Any relationship that brings confusion gets cut. No second-guessing, no making excuses, no, maybe he'll change. Any situationship that drains her energy is gone. She doesn't have the time for half-hearted commitments or emotional roller coasters that are disguised as a deep connection. A woman who lives alone has cultivated an unshakable reverence for her space, and not just the physical walls around her, but the mental sanctuary within. Her home reflects this philosophy. It's clean, but not because she's obsessed with perfection. Wiping down every surface, fluffing every pillow, dusting every corner, it's all done with intention. Each chore becomes a kind of ritual, a way of honoring herself and the peaceful environment she's built. She knows that clutter breeds chaos both externally and internally. When her surroundings are orderly, her mind tends to follow suit. There's real power in walking into a room and feeling a sense of calm wash over you, knowing that everything has its place, including you. And her space isn't sterile or impersonal, it's warm, inviting, and alive with the little touches that make it uniquely hers. Candles flicker on the shelves, plants stretch toward the sunlight, and books line the tables just waiting to be revisited. This is her world, carefully curated and fiercely protected. Because here's the truth, peace isn't just a mood, it's a life path. It's a decision that she makes daily, sometimes even hourly, to prioritize what nurtures her spirit over what depletes it. For her, this means setting boundaries without any apology, saying no when something feels off, and walking away from situations that promise excitement but only deliver exhaustion. Protecting her peace isn't selfish, it's an act of survival. People often misunderstand this. They might call her difficult or too serious, but she doesn't care. What's difficult is trying to coexist with toxicity. What's serious is refusing to compromise your own well-being for someone else's comfort. She's neither of those things. She is deliberate, intentional, and unapologetically herself. If someone wants to step into her world, they have to understand the rhythm. They must come bearing respect, calm, and emotional maturity. Drama won't fly here. Passive aggression will not slide by unnoticed. Half-truths and mixed signals will be shown the door faster than they arrived. This is not negotiable. If you want to have access to her heart, you also inherit the responsibility for safeguarding it. That's what real love looks like to her, two people who are committed to protecting each other's peace, not disrupting it. And yet, despite these firm boundaries, she's not closed off at all. It's quite the opposite. Those who are lucky enough to earn their way into her inner circle find a depth of connection that very few people ever get to experience. Conversations flow effortlessly because they're built on a foundation of mutual understanding and trust. Laughter comes easily because there's no underlying tension or hidden agendas. Even the silence between them feels rich, comfortable, and companionable. In her presence, people instinctively lower their guards because they can sense that they're safe. Safe to be vulnerable, safe to speak honestly, and safe to simply exist exactly as they are. That's the gift of being with someone who prioritizes peace. It spills over and benefits everyone around them. But she didn't arrive at this level of clarity overnight. It took years of trial and error, of missteps, and lessons of heartbreaks and breakthroughs. She has been in relationships where chaos was the king, where communication completely broke down, where resentment festered, and where love felt more like a battlefield than a refuge. Each one of those experiences taught her something new about herself, about what she would tolerate and what she absolutely would not. Eventually, she realized that peace wasn't something she could outsource to another person. It had to start within her, radiating outward, until it became the filter through which she viewed every interaction, every decision, and every potential relationship. Now, she moves through the world differently. She carries herself with a quiet confidence that says, "I know my worth and I will not settle for anything less." Strangers might mistake this for being aloof, but those who take the time to truly know her see the incredible softness that lies beneath the strength. They see how deeply she values authenticity, how much she cherishes balance, and how fiercely she protects the sanctuary she's built for herself, and for anyone fortunate enough to share it. Some days the chaos of the outside world tries to creep in. Stress from work, societal expectations, family dynamics, all of it threatens to disrupt her equilibrium. But she's learned the tools to combat these intrusions. Meditation helps her center her thoughts. Journaling allows her to process her emotions before they have a chance to spiral. Spending time in nature reminds her of the bigger picture, grounding her in gratitude. These practices aren't luxuries for her. They're necessities. They are part of the infrastructure that keeps her peace intact, even when life gets loud. When people ask her what the secret is to living alone so happily, she just smiles and says, "It's simple. I choose peace every single day." What she doesn't say, but what they eventually realize, is that choosing peace isn't a passive act, it's active. It requires vigilance, discipline, and a whole lot of courage. It means saying goodbye to people and situations that threaten to disturb your harmony. It means standing firm in your convictions, even when other people call you stubborn or unrealistic. It means trusting yourself enough to believe that you deserve nothing less than a life that is filled with serenity and joy. In the end, protecting your soul looks like this: creating a life so aligned with your values that anything that doesn't fit feels jarring. Just like this woman who wakes up each morning in a space she loves, surrounded by an energy she has carefully cultivated, moving through a world she navigates entirely on her own terms. She isn't waiting for permission to live fully. She's already doing it one peaceful moment at a time. She has standards, not walls. Some people look at a woman like her and they assume she's guarded, that her high standards are just walls that are meant to keep other people out. But they couldn't be more wrong. She isn't closed off. She's just careful, thoughtful, and deliberate. Her heart isn't barricaded. It's protected, yes, but it's not imprisoned. There is a huge difference between building walls and setting boundaries, and she knows it well. Walls block everything out, the good, the bad, and all the potential for connection. Boundaries, on the other hand, are like filters. They only let in what aligns with your truth. They create a safe space for growth without inviting harm. And that's exactly what hers do. She's open, but she's selective. She's open to laughter, to vulnerability, and to those shared moments that deepen bonds. But she is selective about who gets to witness those parts of her. She doesn't just give pieces of herself away indiscriminately anymore, because she understands just how precious those pieces are. Every ounce of energy she invests in someone else is an investment in her own happiness and her own future. So, why would she waste it on anything less than extraordinary? Why would she settle for surface-level connections when she knows that real depth is possible? She doesn't believe in half measures or lukewarm efforts. If you are lucky enough to earn her trust, you'll get to see just how much she truly has to offer. But first, you have to prove that you're worthy of receiving it. For her, love isn't blind, it's discerning. She loves deeply, fully, and unreservedly, but she always does it with clarity. She knows that love is not supposed to leave you questioning your worth or second-guessing your own instincts. Real love amplifies who you are. It doesn't diminish you. That's why she approaches relationships with such intention, choosing partners who can match her level of commitment, who meet her halfway, and who understand that effort has to go both ways. Love isn't a transaction to her, it's a collaboration. It's two people bringing their best selves to the table, not one person giving endlessly, while the other just takes without a second thought. She gives, but she doesn't give to everyone. And this isn't out of selfishness, but out of self-preservation. She's learned the hard way that generosity can easily be exploited if it's given to the wrong person. She's poured herself into relationships where her loyalty was taken for granted, her effort was dismissed as just something to be expected, and her vision for the future was undermined by someone else's apathy. Those days are over now. Today she reserves her gifts, her time, her care, her affection for those who can truly appreciate them, for people who recognize the value of what she brings to the table and reciprocate in kind. And oh, she brings so much to the table, a loyalty that runs deeper than most people will ever experience, an effort that never wavers no matter how challenging things might get, and a vision for life that inspires everyone around her to dream bigger, aim higher, and live fuller. These aren't qualities she hides behind pretense or arrogance. They're simply facts. She knows what she has to offer, and she refuses to dim her own light for anyone who can't handle its brilliance. She's done accepting the bare minimum from other people because she refuses to give anything less than her maximum. Attention without intention feels hollow to her. Words without actions feel meaningless. Promises without any follow-through. Those aren't even worth discussing. This kind of woman doesn't need constant validation to feel alive. She doesn't crave noise or chaos to fill the silences. Her life hums with a quiet richness because she built it that way with her own two hands, her own choices, and her own resilience. She finds joy in her solitude, comfort in her independence, and fulfillment in pursuing the passions that set her soul on fire. Touch isn't a currency to her. Desire isn't measured by physical proximity. She feels desired because she desires herself first. She feels loved because she loves herself fully. Anything external is just extra. It's beautiful, yes, but it's not essential. If someone wants to step into her world, they have to understand this. They won't be completing her. They will be complementing her. They'll add to the masterpiece she is already painting, not try to repaint it entirely. They'll bring peace instead of drama, purpose instead of distraction, and protection instead of harm. She needs a partner who sees her strength and admires it, who respects her boundaries and honors them, and who matches her ambition and fuels it. Someone who can look at the life she has worked so tirelessly to create and say, I want to protect this too. Anything less than that, and she'll walk away without even blinking. Because here's the thing, walking away isn't painful for her anymore. It used to be once upon a time, back when she mistook obligation for love, when she stayed far too long in spaces that drained her spirit when she believed she needed someone else to validate her very existence. Now, though, leaving feels liberating. It's not about fear or avoidance. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose herself every single time. The freedom to prioritize her peace above all else. The freedom to say, you don't align with my values and that's okay. I wish you well, but I will not sacrifice myself for you. People sometimes misinterpret her selectiveness as coldness or being aloof. They might call her intimidating or unreachable, assuming she's just too picky or too proud. But the ones who truly know her, the ones who have earned their place in her inner circle, understand that nothing could be further from the truth. She is warm, generous, and loyal to a fault. What she is not is naive. She's seen enough of the world to know its complexities, to recognize the red flags before they have a chance to unfurl completely. She's been hurt enough to learn the importance of guarding her heart, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Her standards aren't there to push people away. They're there to filter who is worthy of her presence. Think of it like a sieve. Only what is truly valuable remains. Only those who respect her boundaries, cherish her spirit, and elevate her life are able to make it through. Everyone else, they just slip through naturally, effortlessly, without any resentment or regret. It's not personal, it's practical, it's survival, it's thriving. In the end, having high standards isn't about exclusion, it's about inclusion. The inclusion of the right energy, the right intentions, and the right people. It's about creating a life that is so aligned with your values that anything that doesn't fit feels glaringly out of place. This woman doesn't build walls to shut people out. She sets standards to invite the right ones in. And once you're inside her world, you realize just how incredibly lucky you are to be there. Because being chosen by her, that's not just love. It's a legacy. She knows her worth. You can't shame a woman who is proud of her solitude. You can't guilt her into settling when she truly knows her worth. There is a quiet power in the way she carries herself, an unshakable certainty that just radiates from within. It isn't arrogance, it's awareness. She has done the hard work to understand her own value, and once she did, everything shifted. The world didn't change, she did, and suddenly the old rules of the game no longer applied to her. The moment she realized her value doesn't come from being in a relationship, the entire game changed. For so long, society had whispered lies in her ear that her worth was tied to being chosen by someone, that finding love was the ultimate measure of her success, that true happiness required a partnership. But she stopped listening to that noise. She started looking inward instead of outward, finding the answers in the depths of her own soul rather than in the approval of others. And what she discovered there was nothing short of revolutionary. She is enough exactly as she is. Not just enough for now, not enough until something better comes along, but simply enough, period. This realization set her free. She doesn't need to post selfies with a man to feel loved. She doesn't need someone to check in on her every hour to feel wanted. Her validation isn't external anymore, it's internal. It lives in all the small sacred moments where she shows up for herself. It's in the early mornings spent journaling, the evenings curled up with a good book, the weekends spent exploring new places all by herself. It thrives in the way she continues to heal, not perfectly, but persistently. It's in the strength she builds when nobody is watching, brick by brick, day by day. This kind of self-love isn't selfish. It's survival. It's thriving. It's choosing yourself over and over and over again, even when the world is trying to convince you to do otherwise. This kind of woman doesn't cry about being single. She rejoices in it, because being alone has given her the clearest possible view of who she truly is. Solitude became her mirror, reflecting back truths that she might never have seen amidst the noise of a relationship or the pressure of societal expectations. Alone she learned what makes her laugh until her stomach hurts, what songs make her heart swell, what dreams keep her awake at night with excitement. She discovered the things that light her up from the inside, and the boundaries that keep her feeling grounded and safe. Being single wasn't a punishment, it was a gift. It was a chance to become her own best friend, her own greatest advocate, and her own safest space. And when you truly know who you are, something incredible happens. You stop entertaining anything that doesn't deserve you. You stop wasting your precious time on people who treat your presence as optional, your feelings as secondary, and your needs as negotiable. You start to recognize the patterns before they can take root. The inconsistent texts, the vague promises, the lukewarm affection, and you call them out without hesitation. Or even better, you just walk away entirely. Because why would you invest your energy in anything less than extraordinary when you've already made a commitment to giving yourself the extraordinary life you deserve? Knowing your worth fundamentally changes the way you move through the world. It shifts your posture, your tone, your entire energy. And people notice. Some of them are intimidated. They're used to women who bend, who compromise, who shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were designed by someone else. But she stands tall, unapologetically occupying her own space. She speaks with conviction, she listens with intention, and she loves with discernment. When she enters a room, heads turn. Not because she's demanding attention, but because she commands respect. Respect for her time, her boundaries, and her spirit. Men sometimes misinterpret this confidence as disinterest, as if her self-assuredness means she doesn't need them. But needing and wanting are two very different things. She doesn't need anyone to complete her. She's already whole. However, she does want companionship eventually, just not at any cost. If someone wants to share her life, they must first be able to recognize her worth and reflect it back to her. They must see her brilliance and celebrate it, not try to dim it. They must understand that loving her means honoring her independence, supporting her growth, and meeting her halfway. Anything less than that, she'll pass, thank you very much. Her worth isn't up for debate. It's non-negotiable. People often try to debate it anyway. Friends might suggest she's being too picky. Family members might hint that maybe she's aiming too high. Acquaintances might joke about her standards. But their opinions don't shake her. Why would they? She spent years dismantling the lies she once believed about herself, replacing them with truths she has proven over and over again. She has earned her confidence through hard-fought battles, late-night breakthroughs, and a relentless journey of self-discovery. No casual comment or sideways glance is ever going to undo all of that work. Sometimes she thinks about all the different versions of herself that she's left behind: the girl who doubted her own instincts, the young woman who stayed too long in toxic situations, the person who mistook obligation for love. She feels compassion for those past selves, knowing just how far she's come, but she doesn't dwell on them. Instead, she channels that gratitude into action, continuing to grow, continuing to evolve. Every experience, both good and bad, has shaped her into the woman she is today, strong, resilient, and unapologetic. In the end, knowing your worth isn't just about saying no to what doesn't align with your values. It's about saying a profound yes to yourself, to your dreams, your passions, and your peace. It's about building a life that is so rich and fulfilling on its own that anything less than that feels glaringly out of place. This woman doesn't settle because she doesn't have to. She has created a world where she thrives, and if someone wants to join her, there they must bring their absolute best self to the table. Until then, she's perfectly content exactly where she is, with herself, for herself, and by herself. And honestly, that's more than enough. She's building, not waiting. She's not just sitting around waiting to be chosen by someone. She's far too busy building. Her career is climbing promotion by promotion, project by project, skill by skill. Her body is a testament to her discipline and care, sculpted not for anyone else's gaze, but for her own strength and vitality. And her mind. It's a fortress of knowledge, curiosity, and resilience, fortified by books, podcasts, deep conversations, and all the lessons she's learned the hard way. And her future, it's unfolding exactly as she envisioned it would. Not because fate just handed it to her, but because she rolled up her sleeves and started constructing it herself. Her love life isn't on pause. It's just not her only focus. Some people assume that because she's single, she must be longing for companionship, just pining away in quiet desperation. But they couldn't be more wrong. She is not desperate to be saved. She already saved herself from toxic relationships, from suffocating societal expectations, and from the false belief that her worth hinges on someone else's validation. She doesn't need a knight in shining armor. She's become her own hero. And that cape fits her perfectly these days. The truth is, she does want love. Of course she does. Who doesn't love, when it's done right, is a beautiful thing. It's connection, partnership, and growth. But here's the key: she will not settle for anything less than extraordinary. Not at the cost of her peace, not at the price of her dignity. She understands what bad love can do. It can drain you, it can break you, and it can leave scars that take years to heal. And she refuses to let anyone disrupt the powerful foundation she has worked so hard to build. So, she'll wait, for as long as it takes. Because she knows that the wrong one will cost her years of her life that she can never get back. Years spent compromising, doubting, and shrinking. No thank you. She has much better things to do. That's why she's so patient. That's why she's so grounded. That's why she's so focused. For her, patience isn't a passive state. It's an active choice. It's choosing every single day to prioritize her dreams over any distractions. Her groundedness comes from knowing exactly who she is and where she's headed. And her focus means keeping her eyes on the prize, whether that prize is a professional milestone, a personal goal, or simply maintaining the sanctuary she has created for herself. She doesn't fear time. Time is her ally, not her enemy. What she fears is distraction, the kind that pulls her away from her purpose, her passions, and her peace. She doesn't fear singleness either. For her, singleness is freedom, clarity, and opportunity. What she fears is being with someone who holds her back instead of propelling her forward. And that's the difference between her and so many others. When people ask if she ever worries about missing out, she just laughs softly and shakes her head. Missing out on what? On settling on, wasting her precious energy on someone who doesn't align with her vision for her life. No, thank you. Life is far too short to give pieces of yourself away to people who don't value them. Besides, she is too busy creating something remarkable to waste her time chasing mediocrity. She wakes up each morning with intention, moves through her day with purpose, and goes to bed at night feeling proud of how she is actively shaping her own reality. There's simply no room for regret in a life that is lived this deliberately. And yet, despite her laser-like focus, she remains open to love. Truly open. Not in the way that some people are: desperate, clinging, hoping against hope, but in a way that feels expansive, generous, and real. If the right person shows up, someone who matches her energy, respects her boundaries, and shares her values, she will welcome them with open arms. They won't complete her. She's already whole. But they will complement her, adding a new layer of richness to a life that is already thriving. Together, they will build something that is greater than either of them could achieve alone. Until then, though, she is perfectly content to keep building on her own. Here's what really sets her apart. She sees her singleness as an asset, not a deficit. It gives her the space to grow without interference, to dream without compromise, and to explore without obligation. She travels solo, discovering new cities and cultures at her own pace. She invests in friendships that fuel her spirit and challenge her mind. She pours herself into hobbies that ignite joy and creativity. Every single one of these experiences adds another layer to her character, making her even more magnetic to the right kind of partner. But again, if no partner ever arrives, she's okay with that too, because she's already living the kind of life that most people only dream about. Some men might feel threatened by her independence, her ambition, and her refusal to play games. They're used to women who will chase them, who will bend to their will, who will mold themselves to fit neatly into some predetermined role. But she doesn't operate that way anymore. When she does enter a relationship, it won't be out of neediness or insecurity. It will be because she genuinely wants to share her world with someone who enhances it, not diminishes it. Those men might walk away feeling intimidated or unsure of how to handle her confidence. Good riddance. She doesn't have time for anyone who can't rise to meet her on her level. Because here's the secret, she is not waiting for permission to live her life fully. She is already doing it, one achievement, one adventure, one moment of self-love at a time. She is writing her own story chapter by chapter, with bold strokes and an unwavering determination. And if someone wants to join her on this journey, they will have to earn their place in it. They will have to bring their absolute best self to match hers. Anything less, she'll just smile politely, wish them well, and continue building the empire she started long before they ever came along. In the end, she isn't afraid of time passing her by. She's afraid of losing sight of her goals, her values, her very soul. She is not afraid of being single. She is afraid of being with someone who would dull her light instead of amplifying it. And that distinction makes all the difference in the world. Because while other people may spend their lives looking for love, she's busy becoming the kind of woman who is worthy of it. And trust me, when the right person finally does arrive, they will understand just how lucky they are to be standing beside her. She's not alone, she's aligned. Being alone doesn't mean that she's disconnected. It means that she is in alignment with herself, with her values, and with her vision for her life. Society often equates solitude with loneliness, but she knows better. Loneliness is a feeling of emptiness, of longing for something outside of yourself to come and fill a void. Alignment, on the other hand, feels like fullness. It feels like wholeness. It's that steady, quiet hum of knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for, even when no one else is watching. For her, being alone isn't about isolation. It's about integration. It's about bringing all the different pieces of herself together into one cohesive, powerful whole. She's not lonely, she's selective. She's selective about who gets access to her time, her energy, and her heart. People sometimes mistake this discernment for being aloof or detached, but they're wrong. She has simply learned that connection isn't about quantity, it's about quality. A handful of truly meaningful relationships mean more to her than a sea of superficial ones. She cherishes deep conversations over small talk, shared silences over constant chatter, and mutual respect over fleeting admiration. When she lets someone into her world, it's because they have truly earned it, not because she just needed to fill an empty space. She's not cold, she's wise. Wisdom comes from experience, and she has had plenty of that. Heartbreaks have taught her resilience. Mistakes have taught her patience. Failures have taught her courage. Each one of these lessons has added another layer to her understanding of love, of life, and of herself. Now, she moves through the world with an inner warmth that radiates outward, even if it's tempered with a healthy dose of caution. She doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve anymore. It's tucked safely away inside her chest, protected yet still open to those who prove themselves worthy. This wisdom doesn't make her distant. It makes her deliberate. Every word she speaks, every action she takes, and every decision she makes is rooted in deep intention. She's not anti-love, she is pro-peace. For her, love is not a battlefield, it's a sanctuary. If anything disrupts her peace, then it's not love. It's just noise. It's drama that's disguised as passion. It's chaos that's masquerading as connection, and she refuses to confuse the two. Peace is her number one priority, her foundation, her guiding star. Without it, nothing else really matters, not romance, not success, not validation. But with it, everything else falls into place naturally and effortlessly. Love will come, but only if it aligns with her peace, only if it enhances it and never ever diminishes it. That is non-negotiable. This woman walks through life with a certain grace. Not because her life is easy, grace rarely is, but because she has learned how to carry herself in the silence. She knows how to sit comfortably in the stillness without needing any external distractions to soothe her mind. Silence isn't scary to her, it's sacred. It's where she can hear her own voice the most clearly untainted by the noise of other people's opinions or expectations. In that quiet, she finds clarity, she finds strength, and she finds truth. She learns to trust herself, to rely on her own instincts, and to honor her own decisions. The world may try to pull her in 1,000 different directions, but she stays anchored in her center, unwavering in her resolve. She doesn't run from the quiet, she runs toward it, because that's where her truth lives. And in that truth she finds her deepest power. For her power isn't loud or flashy, it's quiet, steady, and unshakable. It's the knowing that she doesn't need anyone else to validate her existence, yet she remains open to a partnership that will elevate her rather than diminish her. It's choosing solitude not out of fear, but out of profound self-awareness. It's recognizing that the right kind of love won't ever ask her to abandon herself. It will invite her to become even more fully who she was always meant to be. And here's the beautiful irony in all of this. The one who will truly love her won't disturb her silence. He'll respect it. He'll match it, and he'll add to it. He won't see her independence as a threat or her introspection as indifference. Instead, he'll admire her ability to find peace within herself, knowing that this very same peace will create a strong and stable foundation for their relationship. Together, they will build something extraordinary, not out of desperation or obligation, but out of mutual admiration and a shared purpose. Until then, though, she is perfectly content in her alignment, trusting that the universe has a way of bringing the right people into your life at exactly the right time. Because ultimately, being aligned with yourself is the greatest gift you can give, not just to yourself, but to anyone who is lucky enough to share your world. When you know who you are, what you want, and why you matter, you stop seeking approval from others. You stop chasing shadows, and you start attracting light. This woman isn't waiting for love to save her or complete her. She has already saved herself. She is already whole. And when the right person finally arrives, they won't change her. They will celebrate her. They will join her in her alignment, creating harmony instead of discord and unity instead of division. In the meantime, she continues to walk her path with grace, with wisdom, and with an unwavering faith. Faith in herself, faith in her journey, and faith in the timing of it all. Being alone isn't the absence of love. It is the presence of alignment. And in that alignment, she has found everything she will ever need to thrive. Let me leave you with this, because it's the part that no one ever says out loud. The woman who lives alone. She's not behind. She's ahead. She's ahead of the pain that comes from ignoring all the red flags. She's ahead of the heartbreak that stems from trying to force love where there is none. And she is way ahead of the chaos that distracts so many other people from their true purpose. And this isn't just some poetic sentiment. It's a truth that deserves to be shouted from the rooftops, but it often gets whispered in quiet corners instead. She didn't choose loneliness, she chose clarity. And let's really unpack what that means. Because clarity is not something that society teaches us to value, especially when we are bombarded daily with images of perfect relationships, fairy tale endings, and strict timelines that dictate when all of our life's milestones are supposed to happen. Clarity is choosing yourself over settling. It's deciding that your own peace matters more than fitting into someone else's idea of what companionship should look like. It's understanding that waiting for the right thing doesn't mean that you're broken. It means you're brave enough to know your own worth. And bravery? That's a decision that very few people have the courage to make. Just think about it. How many people do you know who stay in situations they've clearly outgrown just because leaving feels too hard? How many people settle for just scraps of affection rather than demanding a feast of respect? Too many, right? But here's the kicker. The woman who is walking her path alone isn't afraid of being without. She knows that her own company is golden, and she refuses to dilute it with anything that is less than extraordinary. So, if you are a woman who is walking alone right now, I want you to keep walking, keep building, keep protecting your peace like it is the most valuable currency you own, because it is. You are creating something beautiful, even if it doesn't look like everyone else's version of success. Maybe you're learning new skills or nurturing friendships that fuel your soul or diving deep into passions that set your spirit on fire. Whatever it is, don't you dare stop. Every single step you take forward is proof that you are exactly where you need to be, regardless of what anyone else might have to say about it. Now, here's the part that people often skip over when they talk about love. The love that you're waiting for. It's not just about romance, it's about respect. Respect for your boundaries, your dreams, your flaws, and your victories. Real love shows up as an equal partner, not as a savior or a project for them to fix. It honors everything that you already are, amplifying your light instead of trying to dim it. When it finally arrives, and trust me, it won't feel like a desperate rescue mission. Instead, it will feel like coming home. Not because you needed saving, but because it recognizes and cherishes the masterpiece that you have become. Just think about it. Wouldn't you rather wait for someone who sees your strength and chooses to stand beside it, instead of trying to fix what was never broken in the first place? Wouldn't you prefer a love that celebrates your independence instead of feeling threatened by it? Of course you would, because at the end of the day, true connection isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about finding someone who reminds you just how whole you already are. Here's another layer to consider. Living alone doesn't mean existing in isolation. Some of the strongest women I know have built entire communities around themselves, support systems that are filled with friends, mentors, colleagues, and family members who consistently uplift them. They've learned that thriving doesn't require a romantic partner. It requires meaningful connections wherever they may come from. So, while the world is obsessing over being in a couple, these women are busy cultivating lives that are rich with purpose, joy, and fulfillment. And guess what? Their happiness becomes magnetic. People naturally gravitate toward those who radiate authenticity, and that includes potential partners who can match their energy. But let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, there will be moments when doubt creeps in. There will be nights when you wonder if maybe you're asking for too much. There will be days when the societal pressure tries to convince you that good enough is all that you deserve. In those moments, I want you to remind yourself of this. You are planting seeds every single day. Seeds of self-respect, resilience, and an unwavering faith in your own journey. Those seeds will grow into something breathtakingly beautiful, even if you can't see it just yet. Trust the process, and trust yourself. Because here's the secret that nobody tells you. The best things in life rarely come quickly or easily. They show up after years of saying no to mediocrity, after countless moments of standing firm in your convictions, and after embracing your solitude as a sacred space for you to grow. And love, real transformative, soul-stirring love, is no exception. It waits for those who refuse to settle. And when it finally finds you, it will feel like coming home to the person you were always meant to be. So, to the woman who is reading or listening to this right now, to the woman who is navigating her life on her own terms, you are not behind. You are not lost. You are not incomplete. You are ahead of the curve, carving out a path that prioritizes authenticity over approval, substance over superficiality, and growth over stagnation. Keep going. Your future self will thank you for every single boundary you set, every compromise you refused, and every dream you dared to chase. And when love finally does arrive, and it will arrive, it will knock on your door softly, carrying flowers and humility, ready to meet you on equal ground. It will honor your journey, celebrate your individuality, and add to your story without ever overshadowing it. And when that moment comes, you will realize something profound. You weren't waiting for someone to save you. You were preparing to welcome someone who was worthy of sharing your brilliance. And that is the kind of love that is truly worth waiting for.